Good morning, dear friends. Today is June 15. Where were you in June 15, 1991? That was the day when Mount Pinatubo erupted. You know, we have been affected recently, early this year, by the eruption of Taal volcano. And we do remember for 2 weeks, Don Bosco Candubang did not have classes. And many activities of the Don Bosco Day celebrations were postponed, if not canceled. And this before the coronavirus pandemic. But today we remember a catastrophe that happened in 1991, the eruption of Mount Pinatubo. You look at the photo on the screen. It's a famous photo taken on this day, June 15, but in 1991 by Filipino photographer Alberto Garcia. And he was a photographer, the chief photographer of Tempo, that's a tabloid affiliated with Manila Bulletin. And the 3 international journals, Time, Newsweek, and Asia Week, they all included the picture in the 1991 Great Images of the Year. I do remember that day. I was here in Don Bosco Candubang as a third-year college student. I was a postulant already at that time. We were still many at that time. I think we were about almost 30 in one class. And the pre-novitiate, it was not yet a community, but the pre-novitiate sector, we were about 90. And we were together as one community, also with the post-novitiate community. The college did not yet exist as how we have it now. There was already the Don Bosco College, but not open to the externs. So we were here as foremans. And I do remember the day before, one of our first years, the name is Ricardo Nixon Pañares, or Dodong, who comes from the south. He told us at table, napanaginipan ko pumutok ang Mount Pinatubo. I dreamed last night that Mount Pinatubo erupted. And indeed, the next day, true enough, at 1:40 in the afternoon, the volcano erupted. And we had no inkling as to what would happen. We were quite far away. That was Central Luzon and we were in Southern Tagalog. But something that we noticed, we were not aware, that I myself was not aware that it was an effect of the volcano, that it was already dark even before 4 p.m. And so we were joking each other because it seemed as if it's 6:30 in the evening, and yet it was still about 4 in the afternoon. We were greeting each other, good evening. And then so we went through our usual schedule, and we had our prayers, we had dinner, and after dinner we had rosary, and after that we had the film showing. And after film showing, we were walking from the audiovisual room back to our dorms, and the air was full of dust, nakakapuwing, no? And then so we went to bed, and the next day, that was June 16, our slippers, when we put our feet on the slippers, there was fine dust, and we saw that the rotunda was covered with white ashes. It's like snow, so that some of us went down and had a picture taking, as if it was snow that was in their background, and as if they were shivering with a cold, although nakasando yung iba. No? And then, of course, after that, we had a lot of cleanup to do, the corridors and the paved roads. And we realized also from what we've heard from our confreres or from the Salesians in the north, and also from our relatives, since I was from Tarlac, both in Bamban and then also in Tarlac, that the ashfall was really heavy in those parts. If here you just have a few centimeters of ashes, there you have about a foot thick of ashes. And they said that it was so dark there that 12 noon was like 12 midnight. And every hour there are quakes, tremors. And so those were the days of the volcanic eruption. And the following years, it was not yet over. The problem now was the lahar, that every year when the rainy seasons would come, they would be bringing with it through the riverbeds. They would be bringing, the rainwaters would be bringing lahar that would ravage anything that was in sight, even the towns on which these rivers flowed. And of course, we do remember also Don Bosco Bacolor. It was finally buried in 1995. Before, of course, now they have put up new buildings. But the lahar came in 1995. So, as many years as that the catastrophe was still active. And so on. There were many experiences that we've had because of the Mount Pinatubo eruption. You know, this time, we are also at the crossroads in historic moments to which in the future we would look back, the time when we had the coronavirus pandemic. And the question now is, how do we move on? Of course, it's not yet over. We're still awaiting news right now whether we would go back to the enhanced community quarantine, or would we move on to another phase of redevelopment. But what do we have right now? How do we move on? Yesterday was published the Pope's message for this year's World Day of the Poor, which will still be on November. And the Pope said, he wrote, "The present experience has challenged many of our assumptions. We feel poorer and less self-sufficient because we have come to sense our limitations and the restriction of our freedom, the loss of employment, and of opportunities to be close to our loved ones and our regular acquaintances, suddenly opened our eyes to horizons that we had long since taken for granted." However, Pope Francis stresses, now is a good time to recover the conviction that we need one another, that we have a shared responsibility for others and the world. I'd like to repeat that. Now is a good time to recover the conviction that we need one another, that we have a shared responsibility for others and the world. Now more than ever. I'm reminded of an experience that we had when we were walking at the Lahar lands a couple of years after the eruption, when we went there to help as a community of the Don Bosco Canlubang. And we were walking at the Lahar, and at that time there was still that threat of Lahar flows. It was continuous. And there in that place, as we were walking, there was a middle-aged man calling to our group. He was together with his family. And you know, he was inviting us for lunch, even as he has lost his home. And that somehow touched me. The volcanic eruption and lahar flows have not killed his generosity. The cataclysm has not destroyed the goodness of the human person. And I know it's happening right now. What flows out during this time of the pandemic is something good from the heart of the human person. That goodness, that kindness, that generosity. Yes, dear friends, with this, with God helping us, and with the goodness from each human person, we will rise above this tragedy. Have a good day, and may God bless you all.